New terror threats here, there, in the skies, and on the ground. Now new questions whether we're spending enough to protect our lives and our livelihood. Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Butner. This is Bulls and Bears. And here they are, the Bulls and Bears this week. Gary B. Smith, Tracy Burns, Jonas Max Ferris, John Layfield, along with Sasha Burns. Okay, welcome to everybody. We'll get the president's new budget soon. It's supposed to ask for modest increases on lots of things, but the overwhelming majority of spending going to things that don't protect us. John, time to change that?
Look, definitely. The major thing of our government is to protect their people. And look, I really think our government has done a very good job of that. But because of our debt, we're limited going forward. We spend about 18% of our budget on Department of Defense and Homeland Security. So we have 82% of the rest of the budget, and that's what they're trying to increase right now. We need about 20,000 more tech cyber guys, hackers, for lack of a better word, that to defend our infrastructure. We have Boko Haram, who just by Amnesty International saying 3,700 civilians were just killed down in Africa. We've waived the human rights stipulation where we can now fund terrorists because we're going to think they're fighting worse terrorists in the Middle East. So we did that with bin Laden. It cost us about $3.3 trillion after 9/11. I think our priorities are as skewed, and we're talking about free internet, we're talking about free college, we're talking about free housing. We need to do something about the defense of our country, and it's going to be tough because we're in such a budget mess because of our overspending.
You know, Sasha, a key, from the beginning, a key priority for the government was to protect us. Do we have the right priorities in terms of spending for that?
Well, I mean, in this budget request that the president is doing, it's 50% for discretionary and 50% military. And then also there will be more money going towards defense spending because of the money we're going to save from Afghanistan winding down and closing military bases in Europe. So while I do think that it needs to be a huge priority, it already is a huge priority.
Well, $2 out of every $10 we spend. And right now, Gary B., we've got Belgium, Paris, ISIS. I mean, the world is a very scary place.
Most definitely, but I can't believe I'm saying this. I disagree with John. I agree with Sasha. While we only spend 18% of our budget, we spend on defense 40% of the world's budget on defense. My God, I think we spend more than the next 6 or 8 countries combined. We have a military budget that's $700 billion. The problem is, we're still fighting World War II. Do we need 30 bases in Italy? Do we need 100 military bases in Germany, for crying out loud? We have big battleships out there. Meanwhile, the terrorists can strike everywhere. I agree with John. We do need more in cybersecurity and things like that. I think with $700 billion, we have enough money to defeat ISIS, Al-Qaeda 10 times over. Let's reprioritize what we need. We don't need more money. We just need it spent a little bit smarter.
Well, Tracy, Paris, Belgium, ISIS. I mean, we've seen all of this just in the last week. Isn't now the time to change things?
To Gary's point, we need to redirect the fact that in the middle of all this, the president had the nerve to come out and say we should give out free college. I mean, that was crazy. Like, the country wants you to stand up and say, I'm going to protect you, and here's how I'm going to do it. You know, unfortunately, our president did not come to the White House to kill jihadists. He came to the White House to spread equality, which is exactly what he's done. Share the wealth. All his policies have hurt the middle class and just made the rich richer. He's not done what he should be doing, focusing his attention. And sure, you don't want to give him money. Gary's right. There's probably plenty of money there. But, man, focus on this. Say that you're going to get out there and do something. Say that you're going to redirect funds. That's what the American people want to hear.
Jonas, what do you think they want to hear?
I am with Gary 100%. Like, take it out of the nuclear submarine budget. There has to be enough money there to fight this new threat without dumping these expensive projects that were part of the defense budget. Yeah, we need to defend ourselves, but, like, do you really think if we spent 30% of GDP, we wouldn't have had any attacks in 9/11? I think they bungled a lot of stuff, and it has nothing to do with the budget. And as far as the deficit, we need to get that down to fight real threats as they happen. But increasing the defense budget is not going to make us have less of a deficit. It's only going to increase the deficit unless they raise taxes and hurt the economy. So at this stage in the economy, let's reorganize the money in the defense budget for these newer threats and focus on getting the deficit lower so we can fight a newer recession, another threat that would cost us money, so we have some capacity to borrow at that point.
John, take these guys on.
Hey, Gary B., you forgot about the fact that we shut a lot of our naval base in Key West and moved it 90 miles to Guantanamo Bay because I guess we're scared Jamaica's going to invade us from the south. I'm not sure. So, look, I agree about we have overextended. Our prioritization is terrible, but it's somewhere we lose options because of our budget mess that we are in and the fact that we just keep growing. India and Indonesia just cut fuel subsidies so they could use that money for education. So they found a way to reprioritize that money. I agree with that, but we don't have a Republican and we don't have a Democrat that even has a balanced budget anywhere on the horizon because these politicians don't want to cut anything because that's how they get reelected.
Well, that's exactly right, Tracy, isn't it?
It sure is, and that's the problem. We're always, they're always looking towards the next vote. They're not making decisions that are good for this country. And John is dead on. We have to do something because we will get stuck someday. We will get to a point where we don't have the money to defend ourselves. And that is a really, really scary notion. Might not be for us, but our grandchildren, my grandchildren, should be worried about that.
But, Gary V., you mentioned the Cold War. Of course we're not in the Cold War. But Russia is really rising up. It's not an ally in any way.
Look, I agree, but we're still fighting the old USSR. That's the problem. The budget is not any smaller now that Russia isn't the USSR. It's still the same. Look, I come back to the point. This is a different world we're in. Can Italy defend themselves? Why do we need to be there? Germany, for crying out loud. Japan, every country in Europe, we have bases over there. Do we really need all those? Look. What we need is probably the Green Beret, the Army Rangers. We need those 10, 20, 30 times over to fight terrorism. We don't need 100 battleships out there in the middle of the ocean. That's the war from the 40s. We're in a different era now.
Sasha?
Well, if you want to consider whether you need more money to keep us safer, if you figure we spent $1 trillion in Iraq, and $20 billion training the Iraqi forces who have run away from ISIS, then clearly targeting money is better than just throwing it at a problem.
It gets frustrating for the American people, though, to hear that, hey, we're going to throw money at ridiculous pet projects like, oh, you only need a 2.5 to get a free education when we have this war on terror going on. People need to know that this is being taken seriously, and it doesn't sound like it is from the White House, and I think that is the biggest part of the problem. Their delivery, again, is terrible.
Jonas?
Look, Russia definitely did not get the memo that the Cold War is over, but the point is if we had a few $100 billion more in the defense budget, do you think we would have done something about what? Do you think anybody in our defense budget said, wow, if we had a few $100 billion more machines, we would have done something and attacked them? I don't think that would have happened anyway. So what would have been the point of spending more money? It wouldn't have stopped that. It wouldn't have stopped a lot of stuff. I think they have to reorganize. Look, our deficit is at an average that it's been over the last 30 years right now. That's not bad on the surface, except that this might be as good as our economy gets for the next few years, in which case we have to do better than average. So when we have another recession, we can go below average. So we have to get a little bit better and get closer to break even on this budget while things are pretty good right now.
But is a $500 billion deficit really that good of a thing?
Well, it's 60% down in the last 5 years. So, I mean, there is no good about any deficit, but we're going to have it. So, I mean, to be down 60% is pretty good.
But wait till interest rates go up, then the world is a whole different place.
Yeah,
Okay.
look, $5 off the national debt is a trend in the right direction. It doesn't really make any difference, okay? I mean, we're still going to look at doubling the debt under President Obama, just like we did under President Bush. Nothing's changed. And Jonas is right. In good times, you run surpluses. The problem is, Jonas, we never run those surpluses because we have politicians in charge.
That's right. Okay, last word there. Thanks, guys.